profound things that we've been talking about. How do we connect all of these to ethnography, oral history? How do we make those connections? How do you connect it? Please feed me. How do they come together? How can we ensure that they come together? Why do we need to know these things? If you were to do, for example, an ethnographic study, I'm going to start with this because we're going to talk about oral history as well. But I want to begin with ethnography. Then from there, we're going to talk about focus groups. Yes?
Yeah, I think from all our talking, we have bring about our awareness of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do our day-to-day interactions with other people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. If you're going to do an ethnographic study, what would that entail? Based on what you read in the chapter. By the way, remember, a textbook is not giving you everything that you need to know about anything. Rather, it's sort of giving you the basic ideas, right? But based on what you have learned from the chapter that was assigned for today's class, if you're going to do an ethnographic study with any group, what would you need to keep in mind? What would that entail?
Observation.
Uh-huh.
Well, are you an observer or are you a participant?
It can be both.
There you go.
It can be both. I mean, let's assume that you're going to do an ethnographic study by the border, on the border, working with people who are living on the border, who are crossing the border every day back and forth. I'm using this because we are on the border. We are on a neo-colonized land. Well, colonized land for that matter, right? So if you're going to do a study with people living on or by the border, what would we need to keep in mind? I'm referring to an ethnographic study. When you talk about ethnography, what comes to mind? What are some of the key factors we need to keep in mind if we're going to do an ethnographic study?
Accessibility.
Huh?
Accessibility to the site.
Access. That's the first thing to keep in mind. Access. How do you have access to the site? You know? Well, it was hard for me when I was doing my ethnographic study for my dissertation in the beginning because I didn't know about the school. I didn't know anyone. How do you build a relationship with the school? Personal. The teacher, the school director or principal. The people that you're going to be working with.
The formal gatekeepers.
Informal or formal gatekeepers.
The formal gatekeepers.
Both, right?
Yeah.
So how do you negotiate anything with them? How do you do that? Well, the first thing, to have access to the site is not easy. It's not easy. Because they don't know you. No one's going to just open his or her door to you. And how do you make sure that they trust you enough to, first and foremost, allowing you to have access to the site? Then, build a relationship with them, right? That may seem simple, but it's not simple. To have access to the site where we're going to do the study is not easy. First, you have to be able to map out geographically, historically, the location where you're going to do a study. And humanly, I would add, because it's not just a building you're going to be in, you're going to do with human beings. How do you have access to the site? Well, some people, they have informants. They have people who can let them in. They have a friend who works at the school, the teacher who's highly respected at the school. They can talk to that teacher and say, hey, I'm interested in doing that study at the middle school, and I know you've been there for a long time. I know you have a good relationship with the school principal. How can you help me out? The teacher might open some space for you to go in, right? That's the first step. But now once you in, how do you ensure that you stay in? That you don't get kicked out? How do you ensure that doesn't happen to you?
To be culturally sensitive to the...
Exactly. To be culturally sensitive to the group of people we're going to be working with. And what would that entail? When you say culturally sensitive, that's a very fancy word, right?
Yeah.
What does that really mean?
Well, again, just to be aware, like we've been talking about all night, about their culture, all of their layers that
Uh-huh.
go along with who they
Right.
are.
Right.
But if you're there to study it, you know them.
Say
For
again?
instance, if you're there to study them, study the culture, what if you don't? Okay, so for instance, if I were to walk into a Native American
Mhm.
something right now, I know a few of their customs and traditions, but without them trusting me, it's this, how would I gain access to
Exactly. Yeah.
what their customs are?
Right. I mean, once you are able to get your feet in, right, by having an informant or someone who somehow introduces you to the group, then you really need to open yourself up to whatever they're doing. You're not there to judge, you're there just to hang out. And that's it. That's actually an expression that they use in the book, to hang out. Hang out means you just go with the flow. You go with the flow, you don't go there with a preset, a set of preconceived ideas about the group and act on those ideas. You go there, just hang out, see how they do things. Not the way you would like them to do things, not the way you used to do things, but you need to appreciate and acknowledge and respect how they do things. You hang out with them, hang out. By hanging out, you're going to find out things that perhaps you never thought would happen. Things have been happening at that in that community. You may not have thought those things would happen here. But the only way you're going to find out is by hanging out with them. Go with the flow, because when you are doing an ethnographic study, you have to spend quality time there, wherever that may be. And by spending time with people, the only way you can get to know people is by spending time with them. There's no magic to it. You just have to spend time. Spending time while respecting their space. By respecting their space meaning like respecting the norms, the cultural norms, the values, whatever they value, that's what you go with the flow. Because your job is not to tell them, how they should do things. Rather, is to learn about how they do things. It's not your job to dictate how they should do things as a researcher. Your job is to learn from them, to learn a new perspective on life. You see, that's what ethnographers do. They go there and spend time with the people. We spend time and try to be involved in the mess with them, Whatever, what's a mess, things that may not make sense to you because you're not part of the group, right? But you have to show willingness to go with the flow, to learn about them, about their daily lives, what they do on a daily basis. And that's what ethnographers do. And you don't just go there to hang out for the sake of hanging out. You're there to document through thick descriptions, what you observe. And that's what my expression. Gear, how do I say that his last name? In 1973, I think it was Clifford, if I'm not mistaken. Clifford Geertz was the one who came up with that phrase. So, thick description. In order to do thick descriptions, you have to be a good observer. You have to be able to listen. Right? You listen, you observe what you see, and you document it. If you're going to be there for 5 days a week, I can guarantee you, every single day you go there, something different will occur. And you need to be able to capture what happened. Sometimes what you think is happening may not be happening. Because it's all about perception, how to perceive the reality. And our perception is not innocent. It's informed by our class privileges, by our gender privileges, by our sexuality privileges, by our beliefs, and so on and so forth. But as a ethnographer, your job is to document what you observe, what you see. Now, you can be a participant observer. That means you are really taking part in what's happening. You're not just there observing. If you're going to do an ethnographic study in a classroom setting, you need to be part of what's going on. The students are talking, then you be part of the conversation. You don't impose yourself, obviously. You ask them, can I be part of it? And then you get to witness what they're doing, what they're talking about. Or you can just sit with your I don't know, with your notebook and taking notes. You can do that too. But if you're gonna get ethnographic study, you cannot just be taking notes. You need to be part of all the fun that's happening as you go. And that's what I call rich ethnographic data. You really have to be, and you have to be on. Pretty much on, you have to be on. By that, I mean, whatever's happening, you want to be involved somehow. But sometimes as a researcher, you have to step back. Because when you are part of the crowd, you can't really see, fully comprehend, fully map what's happening in the crowd. Because you are part of it. Sometimes you need to step out in order to have a different angle of what's happening. Does that make sense? Like if I'm here in the middle, I cannot see who's behind me. I may be able to see who's in front of me, who's on my left or right side, but I don't know who's behind me. But if I were to step out, I can actually observe what's happening. And that's what we have to do as researchers, especially as ethnographer. We need to be, there are times when you have to be in the crowd, but there are times when you need to step out. So that you capture things that perhaps you don't have been able to capture otherwise. Does that make sense?
Why would this group allow me to hang out with them in the first place?
Because they trust you. Because they trust you. Because you make them feel that they can trust you.
How can I get that first trust?
That's a challenge. How do you do that? That's just, how do you ensure that the group trusts you? How do you do that? How do you make it happen? It's not easy.
Yeah, I don't see what I can give them that they, these people would, I'm getting everything from them, I don't have anything to give them. That
You
same
said that.
problem again.
Well, I wouldn't say you don't have anything to give them. It depends on how you
I think
portray yourself as a researcher. Depends on how you treat them.
what your
Yeah.
intentions are.
I mean, my intentions are
Yeah.
to do all the good I can, but, gosh, I don't have anything.
I wouldn't say you don't have anything
What
to them. I mean, as a researcher, you can. What I usually do when I'm doing research, I usually share my stories.
Okay,
I share my stories.
all right.
Sometimes you might be able to relate in some way to your participants. Because we all have experiences, life experiences. Perhaps, depending on who you're working with, you might be able to relate somehow.
I might have a story that they'd be interested in hearing.
We have a story that they feel they can relate to.
Okay,
Yeah, that's one
that
way.
would be an opening.
Yeah. Yes.
I was a part of the study for a while. Like we were just going in families' houses who has child with autism. We were just hanging out with them, not an observer. We were just looking at their family life. So like when we go in there, like we had the same problem. Why they should invite us their home and just hang out with them. But when I went there, they were just a little bit nervous about it, and I told them, okay, I'm coming from Turkey. I shared my personal story with them. That's like why I want to learn about autism and their family life, so I can help other families. So they were just welcome me. When we share our personal stories, we are in their life.
You have to be genuine. They have to feel like you're being genuine. You are being honest. You don't wanna be over participant, observer. And there are people who actually did that, and that's really wrong. They would be like, they would go into a community like undercover kind of police and pretend that they are part of the group, and when they're not. And that's one thing you don't want to do. You want to be honest. You want to be upfront. You want to tell them exactly what you hear, why you are here for. I mean, what exactly your agenda is. What you intend to do with them, and then you will know whether or not they're gonna accept you. They're gonna welcome you. They will community. And if they say no, then you have to accept. You have to respect that. Yes.
In some ways, people want their story told, right? And so when you say you don't have anything to give, the spending the time and the gift of saying, I'm going to write up this research and write your story, that's
Okay, people.
I get interested in. Right.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Okay.
I was just gonna say, you know, I mean, when you're conducting qualitative research, and especially in this manner, I think there's an element of building a relationship
Right.
with your participants
Right.
that needs to be there.
Right.
You know, regardless of what kind of, and we talked about it last week with Dr. Camillus Flores, is there's an exchange of power, you know, and that's what you're, that you're doing there too.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, I mean, that leads us to oral history. You use the word history. Again, it depends on what kind of research you are doing. I mean, I am interested, I mean, the last week I've been interested in, I wouldn't call it a research because it's not really research. Although I could have transform it into research, so to speak. I mean, I've been interviewing people, people who are highly recognized in the field for the research. People who have done work around critical race theory. I interviewed them, and I shared one of the books that I did with them last week with you. So when I email them asking for an interview, I try to be as honest as possible, laying out the book's agenda, what exactly I'm trying to accomplish, you know, and what I'm hoping that they will share with me in terms of their expertise. Now, I'm referring to academics. I'm not referring to ordinary folks. So it would be the same procedure if I were to do research with ordinary folks, people who are not academics. I would tell them exactly what I'm doing and what I'm hoping they can help me with. And that's what you do. You have to be honest. So, any question about ethnographic studies that perhaps you may have? Yes.
Well, I was wondering, how do you do that? Are we allowed to do this kind of study that we get into a community completely undercovered? Because I can't do that, because there's a method. I mean, if it comes in your book as a method.
I won't do that.